The ocean is rising. It's a slow but steady climb that threatens our planet. Since 1900, the global sea level has risen by an average of 7 to 8 inches. This may not seem like much, but it's a warning sign of a planet in distress. We are witnessing the early stages of a profound transformation of our world. Imagine a world where entire coastlines disappear, where island nations are swallowed by the waves. This is the future we face if we do not act now. The rising tide is a global threat demanding our urgent attention. The primary culprit behind rising sea levels is climate change. This phenomenon is driven by human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels, which release large amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. As our planet warms due to greenhouse gas emissions, two major factors come into play: the melting of glaciers and ice sheets and the expansion of seawater as it warms. These processes are interconnected and exacerbate each other. The melting of glaciers and ice sheets is particularly concerning. Glaciers, which are massive, slow-moving rivers of ice, are found in mountain ranges all over the world. Ice sheets, on the other hand, are continental-sized masses of glacial ice and snow that cover Greenland and Antarctica. As these glaciers and ice sheets melt, they contribute to rising sea levels. The expansion of seawater as it warms is another critical factor. When water heats up, it expands, taking up more space and causing sea levels to rise even further. These massive ice formations, like Greenland and Antarctica, hold immense amounts of frozen water. If all the ice in Greenland were to melt, it could raise global sea levels by about 7 meters. Antarctica holds even more ice, with the potential to raise sea levels by nearly 60 meters if it were to melt completely. As they melt at an alarming rate, they release billions of tons of water into the ocean, causing sea levels to rise. This process is not only a result of higher temperatures, but also of the destabilization of ice shelves, which can lead to rapid ice loss. Simultaneously, the ocean itself is absorbing a significant amount of the excess heat trapped by greenhouse gases. This absorption of heat by the ocean is a double-edged sword. While it helps to moderate atmospheric temperatures, it also leads to thermal expansion of seawater. This warming causes seawater to expand in volume, further contributing to the rising tide. The combined effect of melting ice and thermal expansion is a significant driver of the observed increase in sea levels, posing a threat to coastal communities and ecosystems worldwide. The impacts of sea level rise will not be felt equally around the globe. Low-lying coastal areas and islands are particularly vulnerable. These regions are often densely populated and home to critical infrastructure. Bangladesh, with its low-lying delta, is highly susceptible to flooding. Small island nations in the Pacific, like the Maldives and Kiribati, face an existential threat as rising seas could submerge their entire landmass. Coastal cities like Miami, New York, and Shanghai are also at significant risk, facing the possibility of more frequent and severe coastal flooding. We are already witnessing the devastating effects of sea level rise around the world. In the Carteret Islands of Papua New Guinea, rising seas have forced entire communities to relocate. The islands are gradually disappearing beneath the waves, becoming uninhabitable. In Miami Beach, Florida, streets regularly flood during high tides, even on sunny days. This nuisance flooding is becoming increasingly common, disrupting daily life and damaging infrastructure. The city is investing heavily in pumps and elevated roads to combat the rising tide, but it's a constant battle against the encroaching sea. Section 5. Human cost of the deluge: social and economic consequences. The consequences of sea level rise extend far beyond the physical reshaping of coastlines. Entire communities are at risk of losing their homes, their livelihoods, and their way of life. Coastal erosion is not just a geological event, it is a human crisis that affects millions. The social and economic impacts are profound. Families who have lived in the same place for generations are forced to relocate, often with little to no support. The strain on social services, such as food banks and community shelters, becomes overwhelming. As homes and businesses are lost to the sea, millions of people will be displaced, becoming climate refugees in their own countries. These displaced individuals face numerous challenges, including finding new employment, accessing education, and securing basic necessities like food and water. Coastal economies heavily reliant on tourism, fishing and shipping will face severe disruption. The loss of income from these industries can devastate local economies, leading to increased poverty and unemployment. The ripple effects can be felt throughout the entire nation. The salinization of freshwater sources due to seawater intrusion will threaten agriculture and drinking water supplies. Farmers will struggle to grow crops, leading to food shortages and higher prices. Communities will have to find alternative sources of drinking water, which can be both costly and logistically challenging. The costs of adaptation and relocation will be astronomical, placing a significant strain on governments and communities around the world. Building seawalls, relocating entire communities, and developing new infrastructure to cope with rising sea levels require substantial financial resources. This financial burden can divert funds from other critical areas such as healthcare, education, and social services, further exacerbating the challenges faced by affected communities. Section 6. Redrawing the world: how maps will reflect our changing planet. As sea levels rise and coastlines shift, our maps will need to be redrawn. This is not just a minor adjustment. It represents a fundamental change in how we perceive our world. The coastlines that have been familiar to us for centuries are now under threat, and with them, the communities and ecosystems that depend on these areas. Familiar outlines of continents and islands will change. Land areas will shrink, and some regions may disappear entirely. This transformation will be most evident in low-lying areas, where even a small rise in sea level can lead to significant changes in the landscape. New inlets and bays may form, altering the geography in ways that are both unpredictable and profound. These changes will not only affect natural landscapes, but also human settlements, infrastructure, and local economies. This redrawing of our world will be a visible and stark reminder of the consequences of climate change. Coastal flooding will become more frequent, and some towns and cities may find themselves partially or completely submerged. The dynamic nature of coastlines will pose challenges for cartographers as they strive to accurately represent our ever-changing planet. They will need to use advanced technologies and constantly update their data to keep pace with these rapid changes. These cartographic transformations will serve as a powerful tool for education and awareness, helping people understand the real and immediate impacts of climate change. Schools and public institutions will use these updated maps to teach about the importance of environmental stewardship. Highlighting the urgency of addressing climate change, these maps will also serve as a call to action. They will remind us that the choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow, urging us to take meaningful steps to protect our planet for future generations. Section 7. Turning the tide. Our collective action matters. The future is not preordained. We have the power to mitigate the most severe impacts of sea level rise. By drastically reducing greenhouse gas emissions, transitioning to renewable energy sources, and investing in sustainable practices, we can slow the rate of sea level rise and protect our planet for future generations. International cooperation is crucial. Developed nations, with their historical responsibility for greenhouse gas emissions, must take the lead in providing financial and technological support to developing nations, helping them adapt to the impacts of climate change and build resilience. Section 8. Stay informed, stay inspired. Join us on this journey. The fight against climate change and rising sea levels is a defining challenge of our time. It requires a collective effort from individuals, communities, governments, and industries worldwide. Stay informed about the science, engage in meaningful conversations, and support organizations working to address this global crisis. Together, we can turn the tide and create a more sustainable future for all. To learn more about the impacts of climate change and how you can make a difference, subscribe to our channel and join us on this vital journey.